Hi, it's Bethany Wallace, and I wanted to give you just a few really quick tips about interviews. Now, one common thing that can happen in an interview setting, and this can be whether you're on the phone, on a video conferencing platform like Zoom, or if you're face to face. Something that can happen that I think is common is the aspect of an interview um, time frame and you being unsure about whether the interview is going too long or if it's running too short. And this can be whether or not you've been told in advance how long the interview is going to run. So sometimes you're told, okay, well, you've got 30 minutes set aside for this interview. Let's say the interview is going way longer than 30 minutes. What do you do as the candidate? Um, are you supposed to just kind of roll with it, or should you try to find a tactful way to bow out because you don't want to take too much of the interviewer's time? How do you handle that? So I'll just share with you a couple of tips about how to deal with time management in an interview setting. So a couple of things that I think are helpful to do. One is just try to, in terms of displaying soft skills, competency, is be brief in your own responses. Now, you want to be brief, but you want to be concise in your responses, which goes along with being brief, but you want to fully and clearly answer the interviewer's questions. So sometimes that means that you can't just give a yes or no response or answer. So you might have to answer the question and elaborate a little bit, especially, if you're in a behavior-based interview or a situational interview and you're asked, what would you do if this happened? Or tell me about a time when this happened, or tell me about yourself. Well, that's not really going to be the shortest response. Or tell me about your experience in working with this type of person, or tell me about your favorite thing about doing this type of task, or tell me about your experience in this industry. That's a little bit more of like a detailed response. So the best thing you can do, of course, is be prepared and practice before the interview, because the more prepared you are and the more that you've practiced, then you're not going to be just thinking off the top of your head. And so your responses will be naturally more concise. And so you'll be less likely to ramble and you'll stay on task during the interview. The second thing that you can do is to follow the lead of the person who's interviewing you. So if that person feels comfortable going past the time frame that's allotted for the interview, let's say that it's you were sent, let's say, a link that noted that the interview is supposed to last for 30 minutes, but you notice that the interviewer, the person interviewing you, is letting it run past 30 minutes and it's gone to 45 minutes, and you've allotted more time than that, then it's okay, just relax and let it go. But if you notice that the interviewer keeps glancing down at her watch, or has given verbal cues and has said twice, well, I'm going to have to run in a few minutes or something, then make sure that at that point you pull back a little bit and that your responses become a little more brief, so that you're allowing that interviewer the grace to end the interview at a time when she feels comfortable ending it. And then lastly, the other thing that I would say is to make sure that you do pay attention to the time. So keep a clock, whether it's on, if you're doing like a Zoom-based interview, then you have a clock on your phone or on your desktop or laptop on your screen, and just keep glancing at it and pay attention so that you know what time it is. And that you're not just kind of in this la la land of we're having a really good conversation here and not paying attention to it. Now, but again, like, take the lead of the person who's interviewing you. Oh, one more tip. So make sure that you always allot more time than is set aside in that interview request. So if the request is for a 30-minute interview, I always say double the time. So if 30 minutes is requested, block off an hour on your calendar. If it's 45 minutes, block off an hour and a half. You just never know. For one thing, you don't know what's going to go wrong. So let's say that technology just crashes and you've got to be reset the whole interview and then log back in. That can mess up about 5 to 10 minutes of the interview. Or if the interviewer feels comfortable and they are like, do you have a little more time so that we can ask you more questions? Then you want to make sure that you're available. The worst thing that could happen is you've only allotted 30 minutes for that 30-minute interviewer, for that 30-minute interview, and you have a hard stop and you've got to say, oh, actually, I have to be off of here at 10:15 because I have to take my daughter to a dental appointment. I'm so sorry. Would you want to really miss an opportunity to get a great job because you aren't available? And some employers may be really understanding about that and say, oh, well, that's fine. Like, we did only set 30 minutes for this interviewer. But some people may be offended by that. And they may have like 2 or 3 other questions that would really set you apart from the 2 other people they're interviewing. And if they don't get a chance to ask you those questions, then wouldn't it be a bummer if you didn't get the job because you weren't available to respond to those 2 or 3 questions? So make sure you always set apart or set off a little more time for each interview. So hopefully these couple of tips will help you with time management in terms of your interviews and showcase some really good soft skills and showcase that you are agile and flexible. So it's not just about time management, but also about agility and flexibility. Hopefully this will help in your job search. And if you need more great tips about this, you can look at my blog at BethanyWallaceCo.com and also just check out my YouTube channel in the career coaching playlist for more tips.